One single acre, one forgotten crop, zero hay bills from November through March. That is not a fantasy. That is what is already happening on small farms that stopped listening to the feed store and started listening to history. Right now, you are paying $200, maybe $250 a ton for hay that is half rotted before your cattle even touch it. You are hauling it, stacking it, watching it mold in the rain, and praying you bought enough to make it through February. But what if there was a crop that produces up to 30 tons of feed per acre? A crop that stores itself in the ground? A crop that survives frost, needs no barn, no wrapper, no baler? A crop so effective that European farmers kept entire herds alive during both world wars, and yet somehow almost nobody in North America is growing it. That is not an accident. That is a system that wanted you buying feed instead of growing it. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what this crop is, how to plant it on 1 acre with no special equipment, how to feed it safely, and how real farms are saving $3,000 to $5,000 every single winter while their neighbors go broke hauling hay. Let us get into it. Let us talk about what hay is actually doing to your operation. Because most farmers treat hay like it is just part of the deal, a cost of doing business. But when you break down the real numbers, hay is quietly bleeding small farms dry. Start with price. Across most of the country right now, you are looking at $180 to $250 per ton. Some regions are worse. If you are in a drought zone or buying late in the season, you could be north of $300. Now add transport. If you are not growing your own hay, you are hauling it or paying someone to haul it. That is another $30 to $50 per ton just to get it on your property. Now add waste. Round bales sitting outside lose 25 to 35% of their nutritional value to weather alone. Rain, snow, ground moisture. You paid full price for feed that is rotting before your animals finish it. And here's the part nobody talks about. Quality is a total gamble. You crack open a bale and find mold, weeds, thick stems with no leaf matter. Your cattle eat it because they are hungry, not because it is good. Body condition drops, calves come in weak, breeding rates fall. You just paid twice for bad hay. Once at the register, again when your herd underperforms. Let me put real dollars on this. Say you are wintering 20 head for 120 days. You need roughly 18 tons of hay minimum. At $200 a ton, that is $3,600. At $250, you are looking at $4,500. Now add the emergency run in February when you calculated wrong and came up short. Add the bales you lost to rain. Add the diesel to haul it all. You are easily over $5,000 for a small herd every single year. And that money leaves your farm completely. It goes to the hay dealer, the trucking company, the fuel pump. None of it stays with you. None of it builds your soil. None of it makes next year cheaper. This is the trap. And the feed industry has zero incentive to show you the way out. But the way out exists. It has been growing in fields across Europe and New Zealand for over 150 years. And the reason you have never heard of it is exactly the problem. This is not some trendy new idea cooked up in a lab. This crop has been feeding livestock longer than most modern farming practices have existed. It is called the fodder beet, and it has been hiding in plain sight for over 250 years. Fodder beets were developed in Germany and Holland during the 1700s. By the 1770s, English farmers were planting them as winter cattle feed. They called them Mangelwurzels, a butchered translation of the German word for beetroot. The name stuck, and so did the results. By the mid-1800s, nearly every European dairy herd relied on fodder beets to survive winter. They were the backbone of livestock nutrition across Britain, France, and Scandinavia. During both world wars, entire military herds were kept alive on fodder beets when grain supplies collapsed. That is how reliable this crop was. And in New Zealand today, over 150,000 acres are still planted every single year, specifically to feed cattle and sheep through winter. Dairy farms there report 10 to 15% more milk solids from cows on fodder beet diets compared to grass-only winter feeding. That is not folklore. That is data from government-backed field trials. So why did North America forget about them? Not because they did not work. They disappeared because cheap subsidized corn took over. Corn silage became the standard. Hay was easy to bale and stack with new machinery. Fodder beets required more hands-on management, and when fossil fuels made hauling cheap, nobody wanted to bother with root crops anymore. The knowledge did not just fade, it was replaced by a system that profits when you buy feed instead of growing it, replaced by an industry that needs you dependent on inputs you cannot control. But the crop never stopped working. The farmers who kept growing it never stopped saving money. And now, with hay prices climbing every year and supply chains getting thinner, the smartest small farmers in America are bringing it back. You are about to find out exactly how they are doing it. If you are serious about cutting your feed costs and building a farm that does not depend on outside suppliers, subscribe now and hit the bell. What is coming next is the step-by-step breakdown that could save you thousands this winter. The yield numbers that sound fake, but are not. Here is where fodder beets separate themselves from every other feed crop on the planet. 1 acre of fodder beets can produce 20 to 30 tons of feed. In good years, New Zealand farmers have pushed past 40 tons per acre. That is the equivalent of stacking 10 pickup trucks full of feed off a single acre of ground. Now compare that to hay. U.S. hay fields average 2 to 3 tons per acre. Corn silage, the so-called king of tonnage, tops out around 18 to 22 tons. Fodder beets can literally double that. And here is what makes it even crazier. You do not need prime land to do it. Fodder beets grow in soil that will not even support decent hay. They drive a taproot 3 to 4 feet deep, pulling nutrients from layers that shallow-rooted crops never touch. 1 acre, up to 30 tons. That single number should change how you think about winter feeding forever. But the yield means nothing if the nutrition is not there. And that is where the next point gets really interesting. Nutritional value your herd actually needs. Fodder beets are not just heavy, they are energy dense. The dry matter content runs between 12 and 18% depending on variety. That sounds low until you realize the metabolizable energy sits around 12 to 13 megajoules per kilogram of dry matter. That is higher than most hay, higher than average pasture, competitive with grain. They are loaded with digestible sugars that cattle convert efficiently into body condition and milk production. Trials in New Zealand show dairy cows on fodder beet diets maintaining body condition scores through winter without supplemental grain. That is feed cost elimination, not just reduction. For beef cattle, the energy density means weight gain continues through winter instead of the typical plateau or loss you see on hay-only diets. Your animals come out of winter stronger, calves are healthier, breeding rates improve. You are not just saving money, you are building a better herd. And the next item explains why the storage situation makes this even more practical than you think. Storage that costs you nothing. This is the part that blew my mind when I first learned about it. Fodder beets store themselves in the ground, right where they grew. You do not need a barn, you do not need plastic wrap, you do not need silage pits or hay rings. The beets sit in the soil through frost, through snow, through freezing rain. The ground is the storage system. When you are ready to feed, you pull them, strip graze your cattle directly across the field, or lift what you need with a fork and haul it to the feeding area. That is it. Compare that to hay storage. You need covered space, or you lose 25 to 35% of your feed to weather damage. You need pallets or gravel pads. You need tarps, twine, and time. With fodder beets, the earth does the work for free. In regions with extreme freeze-thaw cycles, some farmers lift the beets in late fall and clamp them in simple outdoor piles covered with straw. Even that primitive storage method keeps beets viable for 4 to 5 months with minimal loss. Zero infrastructure, zero spoilage cost. That alone makes this crop worth trying. But the planting method is what really seals the deal. Planting without special equipment. You do not need a precision seeder. You do not need a beet planter. You do not need anything you do not already have. Fodder beets can be planted with a simple garden seeder, a hand-push planter, or even by hand on a small plot. For 1 acre, most small farmers use a walk-behind seeder that costs under $40. Plant in late spring, April, or May, depending on your zone. Rows spaced 18 to 22 inches apart. Seeds go in half an inch deep. Germination takes 10 to 14 days. The crop needs 140 to 180 days to mature, so timing matters. Get your seeds in the ground on schedule, and you will be pulling feed by October. Soil prep is straightforward. Loosen the top 8 to 12 inches and remove rocks that could deflect the taproot. A basic soil test will tell you if you need lime or fertilizer. Fodder beets are heavy feeders on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So do not skip this step. One afternoon of planting, that is all it takes to set up an entire winter's feed supply. And the feeding strategy is just as simple once you know the rules. The feeding strategy that prevents problems. This is critical. You cannot just throw whole fodder beets at your cattle on day one and walk away. Fodder beets are high in sugar. If cattle are not transitioned gradually, they can develop acidosis. This is the #1 mistake new growers make, and it is completely avoidable. Start with a 14-day transition period. Days 1 through 3 offer just 2 to 3 pounds per head alongside their normal hay or forage. Days 4 through 7 bump it to 5 to 8 pounds. By day 14, your cattle can handle full rations of 30 to 40 pounds per head per day. Always provide fiber alongside fodder beets. Straw works perfectly and costs almost nothing. The fiber slows digestion and prevents the sugar spike that causes rumen upset. Chop or crack larger beets to reduce choking risk, especially for younger animals. A sharp spade or a simple beet chopper handles this in minutes. Follow this protocol and you will have zero problems. Skip it and you will blame the crop instead of the method. The transition period is non-negotiable. The real dollar savings per winter. Let us do the math that the feed industry does not want you to see. Seed cost for 1 acre of fodder beets runs $30 to $50. Fertilizer may be another $80 to $120 depending on your soil. Total input cost for 1 acre sits around $150 to $200. That acre produces 20 to 30 tons of feed. Now compare. Buying 20 tons of hay at $200 per ton costs you $4,000. Add transport, waste, and storage losses, and you are realistically at $4,500 to $5,500. Your fodder beet acre just replaced $4,000 to $5,000 worth of hay for under $200 in inputs. That is a savings of $3,800 to $4,800 on one single acre. A Missouri operation running 30 head switched to fodder beets 3 years ago. Their winter feed bill dropped from over $5,000 to under $400. They even sold 15 tons of surplus beets at $60 per ton and made an extra $900 in revenue from the same acre. Those are not theoretical numbers. That is a real farm that stopped hemorrhaging money every winter. The soil benefit nobody mentions. Fodder beets do not just feed your animals, they feed your soil. That massive taproot punches 3 to 4 feet deep, breaking up compaction layers that no tillage tool can reach. When the root channels decompose after harvest, they leave behind pathways for water infiltration and air exchange deep in your soil profile. The leaf canopy shades the ground all summer, suppressing weeds naturally and reducing moisture evaporation. After harvest, the remaining leaf matter breaks down into organic matter that feeds your soil biology. Farmers who rotate fodder beets with pasture report noticeable improvement in grass growth the following season. The deep root channels allow subsequent crops to access nutrients and water they could not reach before. You are not mining your soil with this crop, you are building it. Every acre you plant to fodder beets comes back stronger the next year. That is regenerative agriculture in its purest form. No fancy inputs, no consultant fees, just a root crop doing what root crops have done for centuries. And that brings us to a story I need to tell you. I will be honest with you. When I first heard about fodder beets, I thought it was nonsense. Someone in a farming group posted about growing 25 tons of feed on a single acre, and I almost scrolled right past it. It sounded like one of those too good to be true claims that fall apart the second you actually try it. I had been buying hay for years. It was expensive, frustrating, and unpredictable. But it was what I knew. It was what everyone around me did. Then hay prices jumped again that fall. I was staring at a quote for $240 a ton and doing the math in my head. The number made me sick. I was about to spend more on winter feed than I would make selling calves in the spring. The margins were not just tight, they were gone. So I figured, what is the worst that happens? I lose $50 in seed money and learn something. I ordered fodder beet seed online, planted a 1/4 acre in late April using a $35 walk-behind seeder I found at a farm swap, Prepped the soil with a basic tiller, did a soil test, added some lime and a bag of 10-10-10 fertilizer. Total investment was under $60. The first month was nerve-wracking. The seedlings came up slow. Weeds tried to take over. I hand-weeded twice and almost gave up. But by July, those beets were exploding. By September, I could see the tops of roots the size of footballs pushing out of the ground. I harvested in mid-October, pulled just over 7 tons off that quarter acre. That is a 28 tons per acre pace. I fed 12 head through the entire winter using those beets, plus some cheap straw for fiber. My total feed cost that winter was $85. The year before, I had spent over $2,200 on hay for the same animals. I went from skeptic to convert in one season. My cattle came out of that winter in better condition than any hay year I could remember. Coats were slick, body scores were up. 2 cows that had struggled to breed the previous spring settled on the first cycle. Now I plant a full acre every year, and I will never go back to depending on someone else's hayfield to keep my herd alive. Now let me save you from the errors that trip up almost every first-year grower. These mistakes are simple to avoid once you know about them, but if you do not, they can wreck your results and make you give up on a crop that absolutely works. Skipping the transition period, this is the big one. Fodder beets are high in sugar. If you go from hay to full beet rations overnight, your cattle will develop acidosis. Rumen pH crashes, animals go off feed. In severe cases, you lose animals. The 14-day gradual introduction is not optional. It is the difference between a successful winter and a disaster. Start slow, increase daily, always pair with fiber. Ignoring weed control in the first 6 weeks. Fodder beet seedlings are slow to establish. Weeds will outcompete them fast if you let them get a head start. The first 6 weeks are critical. Hand weed, hoe, or use a shallow cultivator between rows. Once the leaf canopy closes over, the beets suppress weeds on their own. But if you slack early, your stand thins out and yields collapse. Planting in compacted or waterlogged soil. That taproot needs to drive deep. If it hits a hard pan layer at 8 inches, the root deforms, stays small, and your yield drops dramatically. Waterlogged ground rots the roots before harvest. Prep your soil properly. Break up compaction, improve drainage if needed. A little work up front saves your entire crop. Feeding whole beets to young or small animals. Large fodder beets can be a choking hazard for calves, sheep, and goats. Always chop or crack beets for smaller livestock. A sharp spade on a chopping block takes 30 seconds per beet. It is a small step that prevents a serious problem. Avoid these 4 mistakes and your first year will go smoother than you expect. Get them wrong and you will blame the crop when the fault was in the method. Step back for a moment and picture what your farm looks like 3 years from now. You plant 1 acre of fodder beets every spring. Total cost under $200. That acre produces enough feed to carry your herd from November through March without a single hay delivery. No phone calls to the hay dealer in January. No panic buying at inflated prices. No bales rotting in the rain. Your winter feed bill drops from thousands to almost nothing. That is $3,000 to $5,000 staying in your pocket every single year. Over 5 years, that is $15,000 to $25,000 you kept on your farm instead of handing it to someone else. Your cattle come out of winter in better condition. Breeding rates improve. Calves are stronger. Vet bills drop because well-fed animals fight off illness on their own. Your soil gets better every season. The deep tap roots break compaction. Organic matter builds. Your pastures grow thicker the year after beets because the ground is alive again. This is what real self-sufficiency looks like. Not just growing your own food, growing your own feed, controlling the single biggest expense on your farm, and doing it with a crop that has been proven for 250 years. Winter does not control your farm anymore. You control winter. Here is what I want to know from you. If you could eliminate your hay bill this winter, what would you do with that extra money? More fencing? More animals? Finally building that barn you have been putting off? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this video opened your eyes to what is possible, hit subscribe and tap that bell. Every week, this channel delivers real strategies that save real money on real farms. No theory, no fluff, just results. And if you think fodder beets are impressive, Wait until you see the next video. I am breaking down the complete first-year planting calendar week by week so you can put this crop in the ground this spring with total confidence. You will not want to miss it. Your farm does not have to run on someone else's hay. 1 acre, 1 crop, 0 hay bills. The knowledge was always there. Now you have it back. If this story changed the way you look at the potential of your own land, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the agricultural history that the industry tried to bury. Plant your own future. The next treasure of farming wisdom will be revealed soon.